Everyone said Barb is horrible this season, but why is it then so much fun to play? And the actual power curve from 1 to 60 Torment 1 to 4 is quite smooth and incredible. Belial just falling over, pulling everything together and then lunging, striking into them, billions of damage overload. Big warning though, you'll need quite some uniques and a certain rune to really make it work. At this point, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 uniques, plus the actual Zan rune. Should this discourage you from playing Barb? Absolutely not. I went from 1 to 60 with this build, the same build as later to Torment 4, then I just farmed Torment 1 bosses. So we're talking about normal Grick, normal Duriel, got my stuff, and then instantly Torment 3. And it was fun because I didn't have to look for greater affix items in the beginning. I just get the base things, and from that point on, it's a lunging strike, use your ulti to pull things together, then with your shouts, you're resetting your cooldowns to then use your ulti to pull things together while you're just lunging, striking forward through your enemies. How does lunging strike now go from a basic skill to this absolute destruction? And that's because of Ramaladin's Magnum Opus together with certain aspects. Skills using this weapon deal 0.41 or 0.50 increased damage per point of fury you have. At this point, we have 326 fury. Now, 0.5 times 326 is pretty simple, but I just want to visualize it. That's already 163% bonus damage. That's not all of it though. We get the aspect of Moonrise, damaging an enemy with a basic skill, that's lunging strike. We get more attack speed, and we also go into a Vampiric Blood Rage for another 120% bonus damage. So we're already sitting at 280%. For Magnum Opus, by the way, you get to kill Lord Zur. Then the Shard of Varathiel gives us another basic skill deal 150% bonus damage. Chaka. They do cost 25 primary resource though. So we have to find a way for our lunging strike to generate enough fury that we're not running out of fury actually using the strike. This one drops from the Infernal Hordes, and as you can see, I don't even have a greater affix. Yeah, I could have maximum resource greater affix, I could have basic skills greater affix. There's so much more damage I can weasel out of this. The last two items that really make your basic skills go crazy would be on your amulet, the aspect of adaptability. Basic skills generate 5 additional primary resource. Okay, that's cool. We get our 12 generated fury plus another 5 bonus. And then basic skills deal 0.9% increased damage for each point of resource you have. Again, 326 times 0.9 this time. So that's 293.4% more damage. That would already be tons of multipliers. But you also understand how the build actually works because it says maximum resource, add maximum resource. Now we have to find items that give us even more maximum resource. That's, for example, why we're playing T-Bald's Will. That has maximum resource as well and gives us 20% more damage if you're unstoppable. And since we're permanently spamming the Wrath of the Berserker, we are always unstoppable. One problem with using all these uniques will be your defense. No total armor temper, because you have only uniques, no resistance tempers, but we get it figured out for you. Let's first jump into the skills before we look at more items. You want as many ranks into Lunging Strike as possible. Also, Lunging Strikes increases damage and heals you. Cool, that's nice. Then, Lunging Strikes inflicts bleeding. This is so important over the Lunging Strike gives you Berserking. The Berserking is nice for leveling until 60, but now we want to have the bleeding. And the reason you want to have the bleeding is because of the Rage of Harrogath. This item gives you critical strike chance, maximum life, damage reduction from bleeding enemies, and inflicting bleeding on an enemy has up to a 58% chance to reduce cooldowns of your skills by 1 second. Your lucky hit is actually 50%, so that's quite nice. Big chance to get this effect triggering, and it will help you to reset your shouts and everything, especially since you're not just attacking one dude. You're having the Hooves of the Mountain God. Casting a basic skill while at maximum fury causes your fury to increasingly drain until you run out, during which your basic skill now cleaves, dealing 100% increased damage. Now you're cleaving, and you bleed everyone, and you cooldown reduction everyone to pull everyone together, to then cleave, to then cooldown reduce, to then pull together. You get the drift. The Hooves of the Mountain God, by the way, drop from the Beast of Ice. Further skills. After overpowering, we do 12% more damage, and we overpower quite a lot. Then you get more fury, Fury is damage. Every point is 1.4% more damage. And basic skills generate more Fury. Super important as we want our basic skill to make as much Fury as possible. You get your Ground Stomp, and your Ground Stomp will be reliable for making earthquakes. That's why you also want your Ground Stomp to reduce your ultimate skill's cooldown. So you can actually Ground Stomp, ultimate, cooldown reduction with the ratio of a Harrogath, Ground Stomp, ultimate, and so on. More maximum life, more damage reduction with a Rallying Cry, that the Rallying Cry fortifies you, but also increases your resource generation, very important. We take a little bit of Thorns, and we'll get to that, and all the ranks into Belligerence possible. Belligerence says damaging an enemy with a basic skill gives you 68% more damage, and every more rank is 4% more damage. We get the Challenging Shout, and the Challenging Shout increases our maximum life. And since we have this always active, we always have more maximum life and a huge amount of damage reduction. And with the Warcry, we get the bonus damage and the Berserking permanently up, while we get damage reduction as we Berserk, and more Fury generation as we Berserk. Yep. Get more crit chance, get more damage and damage reduction. Most importantly is taking the attack speed is increased while using a one-handed weapon. You want to heal as we're spending Fury, and we're always spending Fury. And there's 5 ranks into Wrath of the Berserker, because if you put the 5 ranks in, then Wrath of the Berserker pulls enemies together in. And Zerker itself also deals good damage as it increases your Berserking damage bonus from 25% up to 100%. Within the unconstrained, Berserking's damage bonus increased to 60%, while below 65% life, you're always Berserk and gain another damage reduction bonus. All of this very nice, get a huge amount of damage reduction and Fury generation, and even more Fury generation to then clap away with your basic skill. Minimal things you want to feel good would be the Moonrise aspect, then the aspect of adaptability, and Magnum Opus together with the Hooves of the Mountain God. As soon as you add the Shot of Varathiel, you do tons more damage. With the easy T-Bolt's Will that you can already have farmed on another character, nice increase. Then you also get the Paingorger's Gauntlet from the Beast of Ice. Paingorger's gives you attack speed, cooldown reduction, basic skill ranks, nice, and then damaging enemies with a non-basic skill cast marks them for 3 seconds. When a basic skill first hits a target enemy, the basic skill's damage is accurate to all marked enemies. How we're going to damage enemies with a non-basic skill cast? Well, that's going to be your Ground Stomp into Lunging Strike. That's going to be your Wrath of the Berserker into Lunging Strike. With then cooldown reduction, cooldown reduction, cooldown reduction, cooldown reduction, Stomp, Cry, Lunging, Paingorgers. Now I said your Stomp is going to give you tons of bonus damage. That's because of the Earthquake aspect. Ground Stomp creates an earthquake damaging enemies for 2000 physical damage, and while you stand in that earthquake, you get 120% increased damage. That's for the whole duration as you're standing in and 4 seconds afterwards. We don't care about the bonus damage your earthquakes deal. And this is also where our rune combo comes in. Cast 2 mobility or macabre skills. That would be our Lunging Strike, so the Moni rune. And then Zan activates. Your next attack will cause your hits to be guaranteed critical strikes and overpower for 0.35 seconds. And we only need to cast 6 mobility skills. So you're holding down your Lunging Strike button. You're absolutely mashing away. You're pulling things together. And then it's going to be overpower, 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 overpower. And that critical strike overpower does make your damage go from millions to billions right away. And the more you have, the better you have everything masterworked. The further up the billions will roll. Final 2 uniques would be the Ugly Bastard's Helmet for Wrath of the Berserker cooldown reduction and a chance to deal fire damage. That lucky hit chance triggers quite a lot, and since the damage is actually high as a greater affix, it goes good. We get Prolific Fury and Aggressive Resistance. With Prolific Fury, we're going to get even more Fury generation, and we're always Berserking. While casting Wrath of the Berserker causes you to explode, dealing fire damage. So we have the damage from the Berserker itself, and then we have the explosion too. And then all our damage is converted into fire damage, and we deal more fire damage. So it's actually a helmet that increases our damage, but allows us also to spam Berserker, and then gives us another cleaving lucky hit chance super damage boost. That all works really nicely together with what we're doing. Then we're playing the Ring of Red Furor. And this is only for the maximum resource. We get critical strike damage and attack speed, so that's nice because you want attack speed, attack speed, attack speed to actually get as much attack speed as possible. Since if you get 100% attack speed, you're going to then trigger more of the Zan rune to do more damage. Here you can get actually 20%, and this could be 29.2%. So I'm quite missing some maximum possible attack speed here, actually like 11% attack speed alone from this item. With a greater affix, like all your attack speed needs would be taken care of with these 3 items easily. The actual bonus you don't care about, you really just want the maximum resource. Then your second ring has the while you're standing still you do more damage, with a Wrath of the Zerker cooldown and critical strike damage. And you definitely want attack speed and resistance to all elements. And the resistance is probably the most important stat, as with an incense together, this is what I'm sitting at, right? We're getting there. If this was a greater affix resistance to all elements, fantastic. On your amulet, we got maximum resource. Obviously, we could try to get duelist here for even more attack speed. Getting the maximum resource greater affix was easier, and you really want that total armor temper. And I thought we really wanted that total armor temper, but we don't actually need it, because with instances, you kind of have the armor that you need to get. For weapons, we want to have a hammer with a maximum life, and instead of vulnerable damage, crit damage. And then we also temper critical strike damage and chance for lunging strike to deal double damage. And our second weapon is going to be tempering belligerence. Yes, ranks to belligerent. You see it here, it's 10 ranks. 10 ranks is going to give us another 4% more rank, 40% bonus damage. If I would masterwork this another time, another 8% bonus damage on top. Damn son. Quite some items to get. That's why I attached the max roll boss cheat sheet in the description below. You pretty much can just look at Hooves of the Mountain God is dropping from Beast of Ice Urivar, or you'll be searching for Rage of Hergith. That would be the Grigor Gavanic Saint. You can easily see where everything drops in this little chart. As our technique, it's going to be the Axe technique for increased damage to vulnerable enemies. And as the mercenary, you run Rahir with the resistance to all elements. Really important. And we got Variana giving us even more bonus attack speed, because why not? And then for the Paragon board, there comes the real important part. First, we get Challenger. Challenger gives us massively more strength. That leads us into the Warbringer board. For every 75 Fury spent, we gain 15% of maximum life is fortified, so we're always fortified. And we can here max out the Wrath Glyph for Dexterity. I think there's even another 10 points of Dexterity more to take. Important in this board is the Maximum Fury. You want to get all the Maximum Fury, because more Maximum Fury is more damage. Doesn't matter that this one doesn't provide us damage. These nodes are insane. And we get resistance to all elements plus the fire resistance. But we're actually fire resistance really good, so we're more here for the maximum life than actually the resistance. Into the Blood Rage board, killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to grant Berserking, but your damage is increased by 45% while Berserking. With damage reduction from bleeding enemies, more maximum life, and also the Ambidextrous, where I deal more damage wielding one-handed weapons, and I always do wield those one-handed weapons. The damage to bleeding enemies is not really needed down there. We get the Martial Glyph for the Shout cooldown reduction inside of the Decimator board for 20% more damage against vulnerable and 20% more overpower. And our overpower critical strikes with the Zan rune go crazy. We have here damage life, we get damage reduction, and we get even more maximum life. The armor down here is not needed. Then lastly, the Weapon Master board, where swapping weapons grants you 8% of your maximum fury. You deal 30% increased damage to injured and healthy enemies. That we definitely want, with the maximum lightning resistance, resistance to all elements, the attack speed, and I need to weasel out a few more points of dexterity as I'm going actually through the boards to get the bonus attack speed bonus. And lastly, we get the Revenge. That gives us more damage, up to 15% if we have dealt Thorns damage. And as you might remember or not, we actually do a little bit of Thorns damage. Teensy weensy bit, but that 15% damage multiplier is quite insane. Lastly, for our Arcana, we want to execute together with Disintegrate. Then we make our enemies vulnerable, as I don't really have any other source of vulnerable apart from the lucky hit with core skills. But yeah, we're not core skilling at all, so thank you very much for that. And I am playing the Reactive Ooze, where invoking your Catalyst grants 20% maximum resource generation per second for the next 10 seconds, which helps tremendously to keep the Fury up for the Lunging Strike, for the Hooves of the Mountain Gods, and everything. In order to be a bit more tanky, I've experimented with kicking out the Sapping Crux and putting in the Bottled Wind Arcana. In order to kick out the Sapping Crux, though, you gotta make sure that one of your items, a ring or amulet, has the lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable. For the infusion, you could take Nebulous Extract for the damage reduction. But since we're doing increasing fire damage, it would probably be better to take Smoldering Embers, as we then ignite the ground below our opponents, and we're kind of standing in place as we're spamming away with Lunging Strike. Works pretty damn well. If you max out the build, get greater affix on all the items, and the proper masterworks as listed in the planner below, the build can go PID 100 and beyond. That being said, with the basic masterworking that I had, 8 masterworks, 4 masterworks, not even greater affix items, not everything maxed out, you can easily finish your seasonal journey, PID 75, you can destroy everything in Torment 4, you can speed farm a bit and have a good damn joy. But there is a nice path to further power. The damage scaling does feel good. Even without triple masterwork hits, even without mythics, you can still gain massive amounts of power and have a good time. What do you think? Do I have you convinced on Barbarian? And would you please check out this video because it's very important to me. Enjoy and have a fantastic good day.